All right, if you're watching this, it's because you made a little mistake in the cooldown or just something I wanted you to see, so that's great. It means you're going to be learning something today. So for this question, we are trying to figure out how many 3/4 will fit into 2. Okay, so 3/4 is smaller than 2, so we know it's going to go in there at least once, and in this case, probably more than one time. So the first question is to write a multiplication equation and a division equation that can be used to answer the question. So if you're thinking about like how many times one number goes into another number, sometimes it's easier to think about this with like whole numbers. Like say I said, how many times does 2 go into 10? Well, I think we know the answer to that is 5, right? So, but let's say I don't know the answer, okay? And that's what I'm gonna be working with right here is I don't know the answer. So if I wanna know how many times 3/4 goes into 2, one way to do it is with multiplication, is I would take 3/4 times some number. We don't know how many times it goes into that. That's my unknown. And that is going to equal 2. So that's my unknown. Kind of like in this problem up here with the 2 and the 10, it would be like 2 times what is equal to, is equal to 10. Now I know that one you can just do in your head, but we're just looking at the structure. The second one is the division equation. Okay, if I want to know how many 3/4 are in 2, well, I could take 2 and I could divide that into groups of 3/4. And however many times that goes into there is going to be my answer. And similarly up here, the division equation would be, I have 10 and I divide it by 2, and my answer is going to tell me how many times 2 goes into 10. All right, so that would be my multiplication and division equation. Now you might already know the answer to this, especially if you remember the algorithm for dividing fractions, but we're really focused on the first few lessons is can you show this visually? So that's what we're going to be doing right here is drawing a tape diagram. Because I'm working with 3/4, okay? Actually what I'm thinking about is I'm going to break my diagram down into 1/4 because I think that's going to make it a little bit easier to see. So when I determine the length of my line, I'm going to go over each of these boxes is going to be a fourth. So this would be like 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So that's up to 1. And then I got to do it again. Another 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. Now we're up to 2. So that right there would be the length that I'm going to use. You don't have to. I just think it's going to make dividing this up a little bit easier. So I'll do another line. And it doesn't matter how tall you make this or how short. So let me just close my box up. And right there in the middle, I'm going to put a dashed line. Okay, so that represents the 1. This is the 2. And the reason I went up to 2 is I'm trying to figure out how many times it goes into 2, right? So what would a 3/4 look like in this tape diagram? Yeah, let's go ahead and I'm going to put the 2 on the top so I don't get too messy here as I go along. Well, 3/4 is going to be 3 of these boxes. So 3/4 is going to be like that length right there. So let me just kind of highlight that in blue. Using different colors here kind of helps. So this right here, that first box, this would be one group of 3/4. Okay, cool. Now, could I fit another group in there? Sure. Okay, so let me change my color. If I drew another box, I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. So this would be another 3/4. All right, so there is my second group of 3/4. Okay, could I get another group into there? Not quite, because remember 3/4 would be 3 of those boxes. And if I tried to draw it out, let's use yellow now, I'd go over, there's 1, 2, 3/4, and I've kind of overshot my box, or I've overshot 2. So it doesn't quite fit. 3 full groups of 3/4 doesn't fit into 2. Well, how much of this last group does fit? Well, if you just look at this part right here is what fits into that 2. Well, how much of this group is that? And put a little question mark there. Well, I just shaded in 2/3 of that group. So I can get 2 groups of 3/4 plus another 2/3 of a group. So in total, how much goes in? It's going to be 2 and 2/3. So the 2 is the groups. And I should say how many full groups. And the 2/3 is the part of the last group.